What I'm going to do now, I've done that, I've stretched the head in, is take the tuning back down again. It would be nice to leave, what I tend to do is do that, then leave it for maybe half an hour. That's what I would normally do, just to put the head on, to get the tension going, let it bed in a little bit. But for today's purposes, I'm going to start retuning straight away. So what I'm doing now is, like I did with the bottom head, I'm taking it down to just not too much tension on the drum. So it's more than finger tight, but just so you got a little, so on the drum key you can just feel it's just starting to resist. Right. So now we should be at a fairly... So we're starting to get somewhere that sounds pretty decent now. What I'm doing is trying to figure out how much damping to use on the drum itself. So I tend to just use my fingers to feel for... So obviously that's when you play it without any damping on. Even though it's a double ply head, you've still got a bit of ring on there, which sometimes is really nice to have. It just depends on the song. This is where song choice comes into what song you're going to use the drums on, the sort of way you want the drums to sound, how open you want them or how closed you want them to. In this room here, which is quite a dry room, I'll tend to tune the drums, have a bit more damping on them, tune them quite lower, tend to go for a bit more of a sort of 70s sound where everything's a little bit deader and just use the sound of the room. Whereas later on when we move into the live area, I'll tend to tune the drums a bit more open and let them sort of resonate within the room. So it's a kind of medium tuning. I'm going to take it down a little bit more and go for a slightly fatter sound on this. And then I'm going to put some damping on there just to sort of take some of the overtones out. Right, what I'm going to use some of these moon gels, which are these little blue things here. These are really great. I mean, they come in little pots like this, and I tend to use these rather than like the sort of circular ring tuners that go around the drum, just because you've got a bit more control over how much damping you use. I tend to start off with one, just on the edge of the drum there. If you wanted to dampen it a bit more, just put one across on the opposite side. So it's actually, you know, you can actually, I mean, it's quite a dead sound then, but it's nice and controlled. So this is where I'm going to talk about the snare tension. The tensioner for obviously for the snares on the side can actually be used as a fine-tune control for the drum, and I tend to, I don't know if you notice that when I detune the tensioner, it actually drops the pitch of the drum slightly. So if I have it really tight, it's quite subtle, but it makes a really big difference in the sort of in the way that the top head responds. You get to a point where it's too slack. You want to find a point where you're just getting a nice. You don't want to over tension the snares on the bottom, because the snare starts to sound choked then. So you want the heads to be as open as possible, especially that bottom head. So it's probably a tiny bit too low. So I'm just going to take it up a little bit. What you'll find as well is these bottom lugs, they'll tend to detune before the others, especially if you're rim shotting on the drum. So I've tuned the snare head to play on the head itself. So basically that way, as opposed to rim shotting, which is where you hit the edge of the drum and it's a bit too dead for that. But you need to decide on how the drummer's going to play. Some drummers like to rim shot all the time, or you might want to use that as part of the sound of the song, is that sort of that rim shot sound. But in this room particularly, I've used quite a low tuning designed to play on top of the head itself. So it's probably a little bit too much damping on there. So just trying to find. So we're somewhere close. It sounds okay, not fantastic, but we'll kind of keep fine-tuning that as we get the rest of the drums up. So we're somewhere close with that, and that'll carry on bedding in with that was a new head, so it'll keep a bit of tension on it. Should start sounding pretty cool.